You're listening to the Hockey Podcast Network. New shows every day. Find us at thehockeypodcastnetwork.com or wherever you get your podcasts from.
Everyone's favorite time of year is right around the corner. College football season. To celebrate, DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook, I may add, is putting new players in the center of the action with $200 in free bets instantly if you bet $1 or more on any college football game. Take advantage of this now. Limited time offer. You heard right. DraftKings is giving all new players $200 in free bets instantly when you place a bet of $1 or more on any college football game, no matter what. Head to DraftKings Sportsbook app now to check out all of the great promotions and daily odd boosts that they are offering. DraftKings Sportsbook is safe, secure, and reliable, located right here in the United States, so it's easy to deposit and withdraw your money at your convenience. Download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code THPN to receive $200 in free bets when you place a $1 bet on any college football game. That's promo code THPN to get your free $200 in free bets instantly for a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older, New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or in Indiana, call 1-800-9-WITH-IT. Welcome to episode 73, season 2, Red Wings Rant, where tirades and impassioned pleas about your Detroit Red Wings finally have a home. We've got some tiny little ditties to discuss, like ads on jerseys and NHL 22 cover athletes, but more importantly, we're probably going to try and do a string of episodes here in the live version that'll get me through my daughter's birthday. So we're going to go through the Red Wings roster. We're going to break down the depth chart. We'll take a look at the forward lines, defensive pairings. Obviously, we know where our goaltenders stand, but we'll take a look at it. We'll make a couple of free agent acquisitions. We'll break down special teams for everybody, and we'll look ahead to the end of the season. We'll look at what the roster could look like closer to, March and April. And then we'll look at the 2022 season. What would be like a best case scenario kind of deal? What could we be looking forward to? And some of the things we're going to talk about today have been supplied by you guys, the viewers, through all the engaging and the engagements and conversations. Brought some good ideas in front of me, put them on my table. So, you might notice, hey, Matt stole my idea. It happens.
I say it all the time. Get in line.
Get behind Mike. Nothing's happened there yet, so Mike's still waiting. He's still got his ticket, number 1. Still waiting to be serviced. Hey-o. All right, Mike.
Still waiting to see the manager. This is ridiculous.
All right, Mike. Ads on jerseys are here.
Finally.
Everything we knew was a coming. Gary Bettman making the comment a year ago, you're going to have to drag me kicking and screaming before I put ads on my goddamn NHL jerseys. 1, 2, skip a few. 99, 100, here we are. We put ads on the jerseys. They really must have dragged him kicking and screaming. He must have been a bloody mess because it happened, Mike. As a basketball fan who already has this conversation, who's already had this conversation with himself internally, do you want to prepare the hardcore NHL fans? How do you prepare for this? How is this going to affect their viewing experience, Mike?
I would say, when you leave your house and you turn on the radio in the car and there's an ad, and then you drive your car and you look up and there's an ad, and then you sit down at your work computer and open your work site and there's an ad. It's going to be a lot like that. There's just ads everywhere. It's the nature of the beast. To be honest, when they broke this news, I said, "Oh, I thought we already had ads on the jerseys." I was thinking of the helmets with the UWM signal
That's right.
symbol on there.
Your employer.
So I will say, for hockey fans, there's some good news. Basketball jersey ads, I think, are 2 inches by like 2 1/4. So it takes up about that much real estate. The hockey ones are supposed to be like 3 inches by 3 1/2. So it's a little bit bigger. But when you factor in how much bigger a hockey jersey is than a basketball jersey, you do the ratio of ad and not ad, I think hockey wins. It's a smaller ratio there. So, yeah.
Did Gary Bettman send you that?
The inner Gary Bettman is coming out, man.
If you think about it.
So they are slightly bigger, but they take up less, percentage-wise, less real estate than their NBA brethren. But Matt, you know what? This is fantastic news as the hockey, NHL, and Steve Yzerman continue to become more and more like basketball, with basketball-like contracts for all our free agents. We've made deals with ESPN. We're going to be on a real sports channel. I can't wait. And now there's ads on the jerseys, Matt. We're so close to being a real sport, we can taste it. I can't wait.
Oh, that was mean. All the hardcore hockey fans don't want to hear that.
We've been real the whole time.
Yeah. Number 5 is still a position, Mike. It's still a ranking.
Somebody
spot.
had to be after NASCAR. All
exactly.
Right? That should be the goal. Not be top 5. You should be above net. Be better than NASCAR. That's the goal.
I'll say, I guess the thing that's going on social media is everybody is already jumping on what my comment was a year ago about the helmets, which the comments are, I know I'll get used to it. It's not that big a deal, but I still hate it. And a year ago, I was saying, you guys are going to get used to it. It's not that big a deal. So hate it as you may. It's fine. So I was all disappointed because what's the point of me tweeting out if everybody already knows everything I taught them last year? So we're still in the same position. Of course, nobody prefers ads on the jerseys, but I'm sure right, we're not going to have to buy a jersey with an ad on it, right? Like, this isn't going to be soccer, right?
Yeah. The only thing I want with an ad on it is my replica Brock Lesnar shorts with the big Jimmy John symbol.
Yeah, that is a pretty good spot for Jimmy John's, especially when the action figures need to have have representation as well. All right. So yeah, there's not too much I want to dive in here on. I did like people were adding Pornhub and whatnot. What was that? This was a day ago. This was announced. I'd be all, oh my god, if there was a hockey team that went with Pornhub, let's just go with like the Anaheim Ducks. Think about it. I feel like the Pornhub logo could take like a little bit of a change, or we'll just change the Ducks jerseys to match, cinch it in there on the top right corner. I think that's a beaut, and I would buy all the Ducks jerseys if I knew there was going to be a little Pornhub logo on there. So, like I said, is there too much to go into on this?
I will say that one thing that I hope they can keep, which I don't think they will, like the UWM symbol on the Red Wings helmet is still red wing white.
Right.
And UWM, has their own colored logo. The NBA, what they do, it's kind of like if you buy a leather jacket and they just kind of put a little patch on.
Yeah, like your Letterman's jacket.
Yeah, I don't know if every Red Wing sponsor, if they're going to also be red and white. Probably not. So that's probably the one thing I wish that we didn't have to get used to, because they're probably going to have the official logo of these various brands. But
yeah, at UWM when that happened, that kind of caught me by surprise. I wasn't expecting them to be on there, but it would be pretty fun to see. Not that I like Rocket Mortgage or Quicken, but it would be pretty fun to see Rocket Mortgage slap themselves on the jersey, and we'll just have a little competition here. I mean, UWM said it themselves, right? They're trying to change the state, so it's not the auto industry anymore. It's the real estate industry.
I do hope that, what you said about, if they go Rocket, and we already know that they've like UWM's, put their spot on there. Like some of the NBA ones, it'll be like Kia, Cars, General Electric. Like I hope it is, like a little slice of pizza. I would actually buy like a Little Caesars, Nedeljkovic jersey. I think that would be kind of funny. I would buy that.
I would like to see like somebody small get a shot. It'd be nice if there were some teams out there that didn't necessarily need or want to participate, and they're just
that are so small. They're managed by Tim Robinson on Detroiters. Like how small?
Yeah, that would be great. Just a little marketing
car
company
wash or something.
Exactly. Yeah. I was thinking Red Wings Rant would fit perfectly. We match the color scheme. Just give us a shot. Why not?
Oh, that small. Woo, man. We might have to do like a phantom thread and put a few of our Yzerman fleece threads in one of the jerseys. I think that's probably our best shot. Was there any other big news this week, Matt?
No, it was just the NHL 22 cover athlete. Everybody kind of has their picks. I like that people are actually sending, Steve Yzerman was going to be their pick. That's cute. But I had my pick in mind, and I thought I'd share it with everybody. I think it's a no-brainer, in my opinion. It'd be Kucherov. And not only are we not going to use a picture of him on the ice, we're going to use him from his press conference when he was waving the victory of his Stanley Cup victory in the fans of the Montreal Canadiens' faces. And I think this is perfect because it's NHL 22. And Mike, he's got the double deuce up already. You just fade that in. 2 comes out from either hand. NHL 22. Boom. You got it. And you've got a superstar right here. That right there. That is your EA Sports NHL 22 cover athlete. And not only did we pick the right guy, I've got the photo ready to go. I think EA should be sending me money right now. At least for properly predicting what we're going to see tomorrow morning.
We could probably lose the podium and get our first Pornhub ad right above Nikita. So I think it's easy peasy. There's 2 choices, man. You could go Nikita, right? Pantsless, or I think another good choice. Again, we're just trying to generate more revenue for the NHL products, Matt. I think we confuse people, all right? I think on the cover, we just put Cthulhu, the mascot for the Seattle Kraken. We put a big squid monster on there, so the knowing fans will know that it's a hockey game and take it home. But we also get fans of like Doom, first-person alien shooters, and then we have maybe a Cthulhu mini game inside the NHL 22 game. Are you in?
Absolutely.
Maybe it shoots out like a brown spray, like coffee, like that Seattle coffee. I think that would be pretty fun.
Are you aware that there was like a whole horror line through like WWE video games, including Cthulhu and like zombies and stuff?
No, I only played Royal Rumble mode.
Yeah, I mean, me too. It was a DLC. It was one of those, hey, our game sucks, but look what we did. All right, I think it's time that we could start breaking down these rosters. If you guys are listening to this first episode, which I'm calling it the first episode because, again, we've got plans coming up this weekend. And Mike's actually going to be a part of my plans. But what we want to do is just kind of break some of these down. I think they might even end up being, maybe they're going to be 10-minute chunks. And then once we sign Elias Pettersson, I'll add that to the episode, and then you guys can listen to the rest of the depth chart breakdown. Of course, you know what?
A few minutes for that. Yeah.
When that happens, though, Mike, what we're going to have to record right now are 2 different episodes. We're going to have to do a depth chart breakdown on what the roster looks today, and then we have to have a backup in case Pettersson signed, or I'm sorry, when Pettersson signed, once he does the offer sheet, and then, Vancouver gives him up, then we have to have that conversation. So, yeah, it's just going to be a long night, Mike. I'd say everybody, if you're watching the live show, settle in 3 or 4 hours so we can do the whole breakdown and then do the EP breakdown. But North Moto is here. He did want to point out, last time I was on, made a bonehead comment about giving Raz and Burt plus picks for Pettersson. Obviously, that's not possible with the RFA. And then here we go. I like this suggestion, too. Put the 2 brothers in New Jersey for 22. That is real cool. That is real cool. I wonder if they take. Oh, no. He's talking about the Hughes. We're not from New Jersey. I don't know if they take a shot. I don't know if they take a shot on a couple of Hughes. I thought
you meant like put the two brothers on a new jersey.
Oh, you like think these two brothers, right?
Yeah, these two brothers on some
the two that everybody's staring at right now. No, the Hughes
like
brothers.
Looking over our shoulders with like number 2s on our jerseys, like going like that. Yeah.
Well, then they should do that, and then 23, they just go ahead and put the 3 of them on there when they were giggling and celebrating this past NHL draft. I think that would be adorable. All right, North Moto, you get an A+ for that suggestion. I really like that. That really got me. I was tickled by it. All right, Mike, where should we start? Should we start with? I would say what many have kind of put together is like a default roster. I want to see if I could pull something up here, and at least for everybody to start taking a peek at. Because I made a lot of graphics today, and Mike, I think, got a peek of a couple of them. I have so many, I can't even goddamn find the one I made. Oh my god. Anyway, this is really bogging down the whole show.
People are waiting on bated breath. They want to listen to you narrate as the sausage is made over there in the back of the butcher shop.
Where the hell is the stupid roster? Okay, you know what? I don't have it. It's fine. I have every single graphic except for the one that I needed first. But I'll just roll through it here because if you're listening on the podcast, you can't see it anyway. Forward lines. First line, Vrana, Larkin, Bertuzzi. Second line, Fabry, Suter, and Zadina. Third line, Mistikov, Rasmussen, Gagne. And the fourth line, Giovanni Smith. And this is the big difference from the first time we did this, but throwing in Mitchell Stevens and Adam Ernie on the right wing. Defensive pairings, Nick Leddy and Hronek, DeKaiser and Seider, Stahl, and Stetcher/Lidstrom, and then, of course, our goaltenders, Nedeljkovic and Grice. So, Mike, I guess to start, I'd have to repeat the conversation from a couple of weeks ago. It was really just me talking to myself. But this roster, according to, what else can we go by? Right? We can say we hope everybody takes a step forward. But according to Jay Fresh's model, it's going to get us 78 points. Of course, like I mentioned at the time, put us 12 points out of a playoff spot. And that, of course, is even mentioned measuring us on a playoff spot on a shortened season. So we were really far out from a playoff spot on that 78 points. The big juicy pieces here were that first line of Vrana, Larkin, and Bertuzzi. We're going to be one of the top first lines in the league. And then our goaltending was also going to be in the top half of the league. And a lot of that does have to do with some inflated numbers from Nedeljkovic. I mean, you don't have the 3 seasons to create there. So, with Jay Fresh's model, you've just got the 1 season. It was a great season. It's not as much data as some of the other goaltenders have out there, but we did pretty good on the goaltending, and our first line and everything else just kind of went downhill from there.
This line combination, I don't think anyone's really against it, but I'll believe it when I see it. I still don't know what we're going to get out of Bertuzzi, even though we did extend him for more than a year. I don't know what we're going to. For some reason, I don't want to see Larkin and Vrana together. I feel like those are the 2 guys when they're on the ice. That's our best chance to score. So I almost feel like we got to spread the wealth a little bit. From the first line, I don't even count 2s up there. I already see that it's going to be, Robbie Fabry or Zadina. And then I'd really rather see Vrana and Hughes playing together. I like that. I like that bit of sizzle, and I like spreading out the speed and stick handling from Vrana and Larkin. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, Matt?
Your first comment.
Have I been burned that hard by Bertuzzi? Am I the only one feeling this sentiment?
Yeah, Bertuzzi measures out pretty great. That's one of the things too. Is like what we're going to see here. The real difference, and what I want to bring up next are some power play lines, because we've actually measured out when everybody's healthy to have an okay 5-on-5 team. We talked about it all last season. Like we get pretty close, and then our goaltending gets us even closer. But the big difference has been special teams. So if we're going to make a bunch of changes here, like one of the things I wanted to do was to get Fabry, Suter, and Bertuzzi playing together, and we've been making that joke about the Guelph Storm line, which we would hopefully call the Red Storm line. And then I would have our checkmates. I would have Vrana and Zadina playing together. So you'd have Vrana and Zadina, maybe, like you said, you wanted to have Suter and Vrana playing together. It's not a bad idea, because when you take a look at Suter's, you take a look at the deep analytics, the first thing you could do is say, well, he was carried by one of the best wingers in the league, in Patrick Kane. Mike, your favorite winger of all time. But Vrana scored out better than Patrick Kane. So if you're going to at least make the argument that Suter was carried by Patrick Kane, and that's why his hardcore analytics looked a little bit better, I should say deep analytics. I don't know. I'm getting all turned on by analytics, apparently, bringing up Pornhub and whatnot.
Yeah.
All right. Refocus. You're going to make that argument about Suter benefiting from Kane. Then maybe you're right, Mike. Maybe put him with who we saw could be one of the best wingers in the league when we watched him for those 11 games at the end of last season, would be Jakub Vrana. So I'm on board with that. I think another thing I wanted to point out today, and I'm gonna be a really bad podcast host right now, but my man knows who I'm talking about. He brought it up, putting Suter on the wing. We were talking about it on YouTube today in the comments. If you are listening, just throw up in the comments. That was me. But he wants to put Suter on the wing. He really does see Rasmussen ready to go in the second line. I think is another interesting conversation, because when you build out this bottom six, it really just felt like I was building out a who's left. And I hate to say that, but when we're not playing around with Lucas Raymond or Jonathan Berggren yet, it really does feel that way. And we here at Red Wings Rant, we love Adam Ernie. I think Giovanni Smith has been on our radar since the show started. We've wanted him to be a huge piece of this team, but it still just kind of feels like, all right, who's left? Toss him in there, right? And that's us even keeping Joe Veleno off the board here too. And the only reason that happened is probably because we're looking at how excited Jeff Blashill was once we picked up Mitchell Stevens. So you don't want to take away that excitement. He clearly sees a roster spot for him. He made that comparison of, you have a guy who could make the team on the Tampa Bay Lightning and his eyes lit up. Then of course Mitchell could make a Red Wings team. These are Jeff Blashill's words, not mine. Yeah. But I said, I think there's a lot of different ways you could toss these names together. I like my top six. My bottom six, clearly you could toss out Gagne and put in Joe Veleno. But one of the issues that pops up too, Mike, and we'll get into the power play lines in a minute here, is how many goddamn left-handed forwards we have, and we need some fucking righties. So that's where Gagne gets slotted in there. And really, it really is. He's here because I messed around with some power plays, and that's just what you need. You need a good mix, especially with the 1-3-1 being like the only power play anybody wants to run anymore. You've got to get some righties, and it's just been tough to fill that void. But yeah, like I said, I'm not sure how much we want to break down the forwards more, but on the defensive side, probably the biggest change would either be Nick Leddy and DeKaiser switching, or the Leddy line getting moved up to the first pairing. If you guys are listening on the podcast, again, we have DeKaiser and Hronek on the first pairing, Leddy and Seider on the second pairing, Stahl and Stetcher on the third pairing, and of course Lindstrom would actually be the one I'd pencil in, to be completely honest, because he actually scores out better as a penalty killer, and Stetcher does neither special teams particularly great. So he's in there because he was an easier profile picture to find. But I think I'd go with Lindstrom first. Mike, anything on the defensive pairings?
I like the DeKaiser and Hronek as the top pairing for now. Until like week 2, when we're like, we should probably give Seider 30 minutes a game. I also think it's I don't mind like Seider and Stahl, where it's like the highest ceiling and the lowest floor going together. And then Stetcher's, maybe arguably our best defensive defenseman. And then Letty, he's going to be our power play quarterback. So I would kind of like to see those two styles kind of get together. I maybe kind of muck around with, the 3, 4, 5, 6, but I think 1 and 2 is pretty steady. I guess the question for me is when we do set up the power play, at the point, is a defensive representative going to be Letty on one line and then Hronik on the other?
I mean, you could absolutely. I put in DeKaiser with some of the luck he had last year. At least from a grading standpoint, from analytics, he did fine. So that's where he got punched in there. But I think the only names I'm really staying away from. What I want to see is Moritz Seider. But I don't know if they're going to just hand him the leash. I don't even know if the second pairing is reasonable at this point. The more you think about it, like, are we going to be looking at Seider on the third pairing with the Kaiser and Letty moves up, and then Stahl and Stetcher are your second pairing / Stahl and Lindstrom?
Yeah, you know who we didn't pencil in and probably should have is that Jordan. Is it Osterley?
You're right. Yeah. He was at the Lions training camp today.
I mean, he's getting almost $1.5 million. And he's not going to be getting that to play for the Griffins. He's going to be getting paid that to take minutes away from some of the young guys that we're excited to watch. So buckle in for a little Osterley there.
Hey, that's a great point because I was begging for some drama a couple of weeks ago in the YouTube comments because so we bring up the Pettersson offer sheet all the time, and I go, how great would you hate it right now, but think about how great it would be to have like some drama and be like, oh my God, we lost 4 first-round picks. Elias Pettersson better goddamn fucking work out. But you're bringing up at least some position battles in training camp. Osterley, I think a lot of people would peg Wyatt Newpower as for sure going down to Grand Rapids off the top of everybody's head. But there's at least going to be a shot there. So at least there's 2 names we could still be slotting in there, and I at least right now
it is Osterley. My apologies.
I thought that's what you said.
Oh, I said Lay. I thought it was a hearty A over there. I'd be prepared to see him gobbling up some minutes. Ooh. They have Wyatt Newpower. I guess buckle in for some minutes from him, Matt. And Matt, is it likelier that Lindstrom's going to get the early shot before Seider? And they're going to let Seider be like, the number 1 defenseman in Grand Rapids?
Well, that's the thing is I would come back, and that's a great question, because I would come back to the press conference with Jeff Blashill, or I'm sorry, he was just interviewed by Art Regner. But in that interview, they went over the idea of, can I have 8 minutes for some of our young players just to see what they look like? And what Jeff said in that interview was that Yzerman's not prepared to do that. He wants to get these guys as much ice time as possible. And, especially with the guys that are going to be scoring higher for us, I would say from, an analytics scoreboard. I'm not saying we'll be scoring more goals, but they'd score out higher from a skills and talent standpoint. And Yzerman's stance right now is those guys need as many minutes as they can get. So if they're not making the move to have these guys in a prominent position, that's where if Seider's on this team, he's got to be on that second pairing or higher. I don't know about playing the 7th D game with Seider. There's so many things that point to him just, give it a go. Let's see what happens. We'll get him through training camp. And this team has enough room. I would say we made this argument last year. This team has enough room to fail if he doesn't come screaming out of the gate and he needs time to get comfortable. They have the whole season to give him time to get comfortable. So that's my stance on it right now. I would keep Seider away from that, Lucas Raymond away from that, and Bergeron away from that. But if they have a prominent space for them, that's where they would have actually bet on this roster. I think they'd really have to play their cojones off in training camp to, I should say, Lucas Raymond and Berggren to land a spot. I think Seider just needs to look like he's got his feet underneath him. And that, I wouldn't say there's anything that would suggest he wouldn't be ready to go, but there's always that transition, from one league to another, whether or not you're talking about the space that you've got to get used to, the size of players, the experience of players. If he kind of gives a vibe of being ready to go, slot him in that second pairing, really test him. And I don't know, maybe this is a good point to transition into some power play conversation, because I don't see him getting going on the first PP, but maybe that second PP.
I don't think any of the fans would complain about that, but I think Blackshaw would be like, if I may, excuse me, come, sir. I think that he would probably want to be just a little bit more patient with that. Before we throw him in the fire, we haven't seen him, take a single shift in the NHL. So I'm just mentally preparing myself. Matt, I think it's the second week in a row we used Curb Your Enthusiasm outside of the television program. Also an idiom you can use. So I'm going to curb my enthusiasm for my expectations for Seider. And
it's responsible.
I'll just be happy to see him this season. This season, I'll just be happy to see him, see some flashes. Because I don't think we're going to get the NHL 22 video game version where he's on the top pairing and his overall goes up over the course of the season and he's a 95 by the end of the year.
Well, I'll jump in here. Let's. I think I want to prepare this properly in case this does get broken down into like 6 episodes. But I think you'll be okay then with the first power play, because I did not throw in Seider on the first power play, but I do want to kind of go over this real quick before we jump into the personnel. For anybody who's not familiar, the way that I have this built out is very similar to a lot of NHL teams. It's the 1-3-1. You've got your net front guy, a left flank, a bumper, and a right flank, and then you've got your point player. So the way that this is broken down for anybody watching on YouTube is there's the opportunity for the left flank to come back and play the left point, depending on how you're going to cycle these guys around and what your actual play is with the 1-3-1. And then on the same side, you have the opportunity to move Hronek to the left point, bring Vrana back to the right point. And both of those give good options for what I think are, if you look at all 3 guys in the middle, you have viable options of guys who can carry the play, whether or not they're setting something up or if they're going to be taking the shot themselves. I think this first power play line, Mike, it might be loaded to the point where the second power play line might have some trouble where we want to bring some of these guys over to it. But right now, let's break it down. My net front guy, and this is where I had the conversation earlier with the gentleman on YouTube, and I said, Rasmussen was on my third line, but I think the vote of confidence is him being on the first power play, and this is where he's my net front guy. On my left flank, I've got Zadina. The bumper is Dylan Larkin, and my right flank is Vrana. You pretty much look at that very similar to how the Red Wings were set up at the end of last year, and then I've got Hronek at the point. Just kind of seems like as the season gets rolling, they're not going to make too many huge changes, but I do like the idea of finally having like a fully healthy Red Wings team. How does the first power play look? I'm hoping it looks like this. Mike, we have a ton of guys, right? A ton of guys we could slot in here. There are so many different changes that we could make. I do like sticking with this format at least. Is anything sticking out first of changes you'd want to make to the first power play setup?
As apprehensive as I was seeing the top line be some combo of Bertuzzi, Larkin, and Vrana, on the first power play, I got to say I would want to see Larkin and Vrana on there in some capacity. I'm a little surprised you don't have the 2s out there, Matt. I don't see that familiar bucktooth smile there grinning at me.
Can I make the? I'll make the argument real quick. Is I just mentioned that I thought, one of our big struggles last year was that we couldn't scare anybody with our second power play unit. So Bertuzzi was actually our top performing analytically from an expected goals perspective forward for our power play. And to go back to points about Nedeljkovic, surely that was a small sample size. But I put him on the second power play and built my Red Storm unit.
Oh, God. Do you have
my Guelph Storm unit. Yeah, along with Adam Ernie and, Mort Sider. That's my PP2, but we can go over that in a sec. But that's where Twos is landing, because I feel like he's that net front guy that all of his goals on the power play this past season were because he had such great positioning, and he's low to the ground when he's moving his body, moving the stick. He's a perfect spot for that, and he's already losing teeth, so he doesn't worry about that either. So you put him net front on that second power play unit. I think you have an opportunity here to make something that's a little scary, depending on which power play unit you throw out. And I think too that puts you in play to have two very different strategies while keeping that 1-3-1 format, and you can really throw off a penalty kill unit once they're trying to switch lines and play something different. And here's you got to throw out this too, Mike. Eric's with you. This is as you mentioned, was having Letty on the first power play. To me, again, I still like Hronek there, only because of that's how they started the season. I think there's absolutely opportunity to move a lot of guys in and out of these roles on power play on those three pairings, only because I'm not super confident with any of them. But Eric, I mean, that is a brilliant point. I think if there's a reason that Letty's over here, it's to probably give him more guidance on the power play. So to me, it almost is short-sighted to not have him on there. So Mike, you're making that point. Eric's making that point, but I can't change the graphics.
Letty, Verana, Larkin in some capacity absolutely are the first line. And if I get distracted, it's because Jurassic Express almost won the tag team titles on AEW Dynamite. Man, I think ideally we would like to see Rasmussen be to the point where we trust him to be on that first line, but I don't think we've gotten any evidence that we can trust that yet. So it's I think it's an ideal situation, but I know your scenario is to try and spread the wealth a little bit, but my God, we're so incapable at times of scoring goals. We're such a putrid offense. I feel like if we can get to the point where we have one line that I feel like we could count on, I'd rather do that than try to spread the wealth and have two pretty good power play units. I'd rather just have Bert, Verana, Larkin, Letty, and then the fifth guy can, be some sort of cycling of, the Fabries, the Zadinas, maybe an Ernie. I don't know. It's so tough to even get just those top four guys, and I know we might have some adventures keeping them, healthy based on the recent past. So if we can get, half a season of Verana, Larkin, Bert, Letty, plus fill in the blank for one power play unit, I think I'd be happy.
Well, I'll defend Rasmussen a little bit, because he finished out the season pretty strong, and a lot of that was because of how he looked on the power play. He really, to me, settled in that net front position. So again, where I was talking earlier with somebody on YouTube, and I want to reward him. This is where I want to reward him for that strong finish. If I'm going to do that, I guess, you could go on the PP2 and still the reward is that you earned a power play spot. But I do want to mix up that second power play to at least have twos in there, and you've got the familiarity. And I could bring that up in a second here. But I did change graphics for everybody who's not watching on YouTube and listening to the podcast. I did switch out the left flank and the bumper. So this was the only change I made. I made no personnel change. I made no player change, just a position change. After talking with our blogger Jesse, so this is where, I'm open to anything, but the left flank suggestion was due to getting someone like Larkin with speed back in case there's any turnovers, and I really like that element of it. So as far as I went so far with graphic changes, go ahead and we'll try Larkin at the left flank. But I think for anybody who's listening and not having to be, they're not subjected to this beautiful graphic. It's flawless. I think there is a lot of opportunity to move some guys around here. But I think I'll admit my first failing is probably the Nick Leddy thing. And really, I just wanted to go with familiarity. But I've never been particularly happy with Hronek. I just think it's maybe I'll be right. Maybe I'll land on Jeff Blashill's way of building a team, and he doesn't want to shake things up too often when it comes to giving Hronek that first position. Like that doesn't get shaken up a lot. Does he mix up lines throughout the game? Absolutely. But does Hronek get that I don't know, demotion or anything like that? No. So I think it might be accurate that Hronek would start there, but I will bend the knee. I think Nick Leddy was the better pick there. So on my own graphic, absolutely. Do you want to take a look at?
I feel like let's look at what your second line is, Matt. But for me, this is the hardest job for Blashill and Tanguay. It just really feels like that game, like that board game Boggle, and you're just gonna kind of and see who's having a hot week or two. Unless you kind of go with, look at Matt putting cider in there already. I'm really optimist. Who is that? Ernie, Fabry, Twos. Who you got on the left flank over there? Oh, you got
Suter. We got to get used to that forehead. Sorry, Pews. Couldn't help myself.
I gotta be honest. I don't see this power play unit ever lacing them up a single time next season. I would almost put a DraftKings wager that we never see this combination again.
Let me throw it out there for the podcast listeners. Would be Bertuzzi as the net front, Suter is left flank. Our bumper is Adam Ernie. Right flank is Fabry, and then I put Cider in there for shits and giggles. But clearly, if we're moving Leddy to the first power play line, Hronek's probably taking the second. If not, DeKaiser, who scores out again pretty well on the power play.
Yeah, I mean, you can't not have Fabry out there. He's going to be on either the first or second line. Matt, I don't hate your Bertuzzi idea. It's we're a pretty toothless offensive team. So it's anything we can get, any opportunity. We have such a hard time keeping it in the other team's zone when we barely control the puck on power plays. Maybe that's where Leddy can really turn things around, and it'll make a difference who's on the ice. But it feels like the first 30 minutes of the Mighty Ducks movie every time I watch our power play. So I admire how much thought and effort you put into this, but I don't know if we have the personnel to have this make much of a difference outside of like a Boggle, luck of the draw, who's having a hot week. All right, get out there, kid. So
then I throw this out there then. You just want to move Rasmussen to our net front on the second power play, move Bertuzzi up to the first power play, and keep this the same, or is this is who are you putting in?
Yeah, I think I would just switch out Rasmussen and Bertuzzi.
And Cider, I'm guessing as well.
I don't want to get rid of Cider. I just think we're aiming really high on this one for a guy who's had 0 NHL shifts.
I'm gonna stick with it. I'm gonna say he's gonna get a shot early on.
I am going to refresh my DraftKings app and see if I can make a wager that the Red Wings use this combination 0 times. I want to see what the parlay is for that. And I'm not against it again, but I think I would see Mark Stahl on the power play before I see Mo Cider.
Whoa! All right, no, I'll take that bet. Let's step outside of DraftKings. We'll take that bet. That's no problem.
And I'm really excited for Cider. I don't think we're going to see that right now.
And I respect that. And like I said, there's a lot of names that could come in and out of these spots, but I still like. I wouldn't land on Ernie as a bumper so hard if it wasn't what the only thing Jeff Blashill's mentioned in his post or off-season interviews and press conferences as a major talking point when bringing in Tunge, who was trying to improve Adam Ernie in the bumper spot. So I had to put him there, and it was one of those things where it was like, well, if this is Blashill's number one priority, does he go on the first power play unit? Like, that blew my mind. And that's from an article from The Athletic by Max Boltman, and he got an opportunity to talk with Tunge and Blashill, and that was the big point that was put out there. So if that's a priority, I mix that with Bertuzzi going on the second power play unit, and there's the chemistry, I'm assuming, with Suter, Fabry, and Bertuzzi. There's potential here for this to be formidable. I'm going to land on that. I'm not. That wasn't a Biles land, but I didn't break my ankles. It wasn't a Psycho Sid land.
I think the special teams, right, that really makes me realize, oh yeah, we're still pretty far away from being a good team. Because it's hard to pick your top 5 guys, and it shouldn't be that hard. It should be, you're in the kitchen with a bunch of ingredients, and you're just giddy with anticipation about how you're going to put the ingredients together. And instead, it's kind of like, oh man, well, I got a carrot, a little paprika, some coffee grounds. Maybe with some sugar, we can make a carrot cake, and maybe people won't notice.
So this is a good transition. I do want to talk about a couple of guys who, really, we're just poaching the New York Islanders at this point.
Here we go.
We've got Grice, Leddy, and I've got 2 other guys everybody who's been mucking around in like the J Fresh roster builders has been probably looking at this guy at some point and throwing him in on their roster to see how it looks. But continuing from the power play conversation is why I think this guy who, oh boy, what a transition this is going to be, because I didn't get it set properly before I started saying his name. Kyle Palmieri. Now, look, 30 years old. Certainly, he's taken a huge dip. But, Mike, I'm looking at a guy who can fill in as a right-hander and primarily can focus on the power play for us. Like, this is something where if we're going to be talking about bringing third and fourth liners into the power play to fill it out, and there's a necessity for some more right-handed sticks, and we could look at that second power play and have to keep our vomit down, at least from being so scared. I think this is at least an option where the longer Kyle has to wait for a new contract, maybe that cap number comes down a little bit. That, of course, is his number from last season, the $4.7 million, which is being shown on the YouTube channel here. Now, the thing, again, I'd have to point out, Mike, when you look at Kyle Palmieri's his war chart in the top right corner of the screen, he fell off a cliff, a considerable cliff, okay? It must have hurt real bad, but what was consistent at least was the power play percentages. So when I first took a look at this, I went, all right, it's not going to completely change us into like a playoff team, but I think it is something at least where as we're trying to build this team and get get these younger kids to see a guy who's been playing in the NHL power plays for 10 years. And that is, I would at least put it as a specialty for Kyle. Something that could benefit a little bit. And I did measure him one more time. I'm not going to waste everybody's time and show off another graphic here, but at least from the expected goals for per 60 and Corsi for per 60 on the power play last season, he was in the top 25% of the league. So it doesn't hurt. And it's something too where we still have that cap space if we don't get Pettersson, and I'm sure he still wants a job. And this could be something where for us the benefit is you get a right-handed stick, you get a guy that can fill out a second power play line, and again the 10 years of experience playing on power plays that really mattered. So I think it helps make us, a special teams, maybe not a special teams powerhouse, but we at least won't be throwing up in fear from that second power play unit coming out.
Yeah, I would say we're still sitting on about $18 million worth in cap space. I know we still have a little bit of restricted free agent work to do, but I got to think we have $4 or $5 million to throw at Kyle. The only thing holding him back is I would be pretty stunned, if this 30-year-old guy wants to sign a 1-year deal with Yzerman on a poo-poo team. I would think that it's not that he wouldn't want to get that big bag of money, but he would probably want, I got to think he'd want at least 3 years, a little bit of job security. Because
that's a good point.
He's getting to that point where he's, this is probably, if he gets a long-term deal, this is his last shot. So I got to think that's probably why he's waiting right now to see if this is going to be it. If he's going to have to, maybe just take $5 mil over 1 year, and that wouldn't really hurt the Red Wings at all. We got that wide open cap sheet going into 2022, 2023, and so on. Even if we signed Palmieri, we'd still have room for our best buddy Pettersson. We'd still have room to re-sign. Who's that last restricted? Is it just Hronek?
Yeah, Hronek and Pettersson can easily fit on this.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at worst case scenario. Maxing out that 18, and you'd still be able to afford all 3 guys, and that I don't really see that happen. So. Man, I don't hate your move. I think it would be tough to get Palmieri to come here because he would go against Yzerman's strategy of short-term deals, and I got to think Kyle's first ask would be years, and he'd be a little bit more flexible on the money.
Well, I've got another one coming up in a little bit, but before we wrap up the power play conversation, North Moto has this all figured out. He's ready to roll. Larkin, bumper on his first power play. Hronek and Verana on the flanks, Burt net front, and Letty is the quarterback. So I will say my first thought was never to put 2 defensemen in there because I just think it's so iffy, but it feels good to read that, to be honest with you, North Moto. And then the second, Ernie is our bumper, Zadina and Fabry are the flanks, Raz is net front, and he's got Sider as a quarterback. So those sound pretty good.
I don't know if we're going to see a lot of Sider in that spot. And I would honestly be shocked if the Red Wings played 2 defensemen on the first line. I think that they see more skill offensively in our forwards, and I don't know if they really see it in our defensemen. That's where I think that just that split, Letty on one line, probably Hronek on the other. But I like North Moto's lines.
I think the one of the things here to keep in mind too is something we can't really prepare for because of how short-handed we are on right-handed sticks. But once we get Lucas Raymond in there and having him on the left flank, and when he's playing for Frölunda, he gets himself in position to quarterback. He gets himself in the flank. He gets right in there too on the power play. I mean, goes in between the bumper and the net front guy. I mean, that there's a specific strategy in 1-3-1 where you let a guy like Lucas Raymond just do whatever he wants and you kind of just make space. What's the name for that in basketball, Mike? Where you give your guard or your shooting forward just back up. The whole team backs up. And you just give them space.
An ISO.
Yeah, isolation. Thank you. So that's something that we might be able to practice on the right flank with Verana, but that would be super scary if like that. That'll be a fun question to try and figure out next year if we want to do both of those guys on one line, or do we finally have 2 power play lines when we split those guys up? Hey, Tristan's here. Just got done with work. What a good Tristan. You're the man. Comes right onto YouTube.
I do.
Yeah, don't miss the conversation, Tristan. North Moto and Eric got into it on the comments there for our power play lines. So to continue running through the step chart, Mike, and like anybody who's Tristan, like yourself, you're just joining. For episodes moving forward, we're probably going to be breaking this up. So this is maybe our special team section, or maybe we'll do this. So we'll start talking penalty kill. which I don't have a graphic for. So, Mike, I think you might be able to find it in the notes. But a lot of this was tough. Okay. And even looking at it now,
we used to get really lazy, right? It used to just be, Glendening, Helm. Both those guys are gone, so now you gotta pull out of guys who are still currently employed, man.
And the hardest part here, as I mentioned earlier, like you could find De Kaiser the late half of the season, the last season had scored out well when he actually did touch the ice for the power play. Minimal numbers, but it was fine. Everybody on the penalty kill, Mike, scores out horribly. From comparing across the league, not just saying like, oh, can you believe all these goals these guys are giving up? Comparing the expected goals and Corsi throughout the league. I mean, we didn't have a ton of great performances, except for Lindstrom, who scored out really well. And even with that, all I did was reward him with our second PK unit. But really, this was another tough one for me because I did find some better numbers with Gagne. Giovanni Smith scored out well, and Nemistikov. I mean, compared to the rest of the Red Wings roster, when you want to try out things like we know that like Zadina was doing well as a two-way forward. Pew Suter actually scores out pretty well going both ways. But I wonder if they are going to go heavily into the bottom six to try and build out the PK units. So you bring this up. I think Mitchell Stevens is for sure on the first PK unit. That's the only one I'm really solid on. And then I've got I would say this is that opportunity for Puce to get mixed in there. But also Gagne, like I mentioned, scored out well. And while we're losing Helm and Glendening, it is really tough to fill this out without any, too much going on from last year. But then Stahl, and you can finish this off. The man who played 30 minutes a night last year, just keep it going. Hronik's going out there again. Stahl scored out pretty terribly, but over his career has done some penalty killing. And like I said, from the left-hand perspective, you could mess around with the left side perspective. You could mess around with De Kaiser as well, but I'm not even putting too much thought into making sure I have left and right side defensemen while I'm building this penalty kill out. It's just been such a mad scramble the last couple of years. The main point I think I wanted to drag out of this was that Lindstrom earned my roster spot that I originally on my graphic gave to Stetcher because, again, he graded out as one of our best penalty killers last year, especially losing Glendening and Helm, who didn't necessarily rank great across the NHL, but at least with the Red Wings, they performed well. So that's where I'm sitting right now. And Mike, you can see this list here. Oh, and I forgot to mention on the second PK unit, Nemistikov is going to be my center with Giovanni Smith. That almost feels like I barely tried, to be honest. Like Giovanni did well, but I think he played a total of like 20 minutes last year. So on the PK, so we're not really patting him on the back too hard. And it's something too, where with his size, I know he can make a difference, but could be something we could get burned on that second PK unit from a speed perspective.
I think on your first penalty kill line, I do agree that Stevens is going to get a shot definitely to be on the first unit. Not against Hronik being in there, but I gotta think that Stetcher's probably this is gonna be his opportunity to kind of shine and try and eat some of the minutes. I don't know if I see Mark Stahl on there, Matt. As we add another year in age to his resume, I would probably. This is where it might get a little tricky because I don't think that it doesn't seem like the Wings are big fans of kind of mucking around with the pairings as much. But man, it's hard to get away from we took a dumb penalty in the third period. We're trying to defend a 1-goal lead to not have like the Stetcher, Hronik, Stevens, and probably Larkin in some capacity. I get trying to not burn out our captain, but as far as a dude with the wheels to have that recovery speed, on somebody trying to take a risk at a takeaway. I got to think that Larkin would be in there in some capacity with Stevens, Stetcher, and Hronik on the first line. And I get where you're going with Gagne, spreading out the minutes, but it seems every year now they're asking more and more of Larkin, right? As he further hones his skills. And I gotta say, I gotta see the captain on there, Matt. I see him on that first line.
Now, one of the names we haven't brought up yet, and Tristan's in letting us, he's bringing up Joe Veleno. Now, as I put Lindstrom on our roster because he scores out well as a penalty killer, Joe Veleno could fit in right there to take over for Gagne. Like we mentioned earlier, Gagne gets a roster spot because we're trying to find some we're trying to get those right-handed sticks in there. But I mean, there's so much opportunity to just. Nemestikov could come out too. I think I have a warm, soft spot for him because he plays so many different positions and he does all of them okay, between okay and good, right? He's not terrible in any one spot, but he's not great in any spot. But I do like what Tristan's bringing up. You just move around like our original depth chart. You give Joe Veleno for sure spot, which again, I had him when we talked about rosters a couple of weeks ago. He was in my fourth center spot, but then when I gave it to Mitchell Stevens, maybe that was an opportunity to move Joe Veleno up. And I think there's absolutely an opportunity for him to take one of those winger spots and maybe have a more fun third line with Rasmussen, Veleno, and Nemestikov, or keep Gagne in there and keep the stick and say bye-bye Nemestikov. But that would be a wonderful way to make these penalty killing units a little bit easier to fill out, is just to switch up right from the start and have Veleno slot in there. So Tristan, I love what you're throwing in there. That is certainly something like we saw at the end of the year. We keep trying to peg these guys that are learning from the system. We want to get everybody going two-way. Joe Veleno not only brought over what he did in Europe and transitioned well, but he really did look one of our top two-way forwards at the end of the season there. So I really like that mention in there.
Yeah, I would just say, kind of towards the end of the season, that's when this team was really having a rough time with injuries. So we'll see how, Veleno kind of pans out minute-wise. But the fun thing is we keep making these predictions about how the season's going to start, and it feels like we're making a prediction for how they're going to look for 3 games before
everything
reality and injuries start piling up. More of our young guys start shining in Grand Rapids.
So let's do this. We don't want this to go too long. So we do have at least an end of the season roster I wanted to take a peek at. If Mike, if you want to do that, and we'll transition into that conversation. And then we'll sail off into the sunset after that.
Yeah, is that your because I see you have a 2022 roster builder with a looks like a member of the Florida Panthers sliding in on that first line, man. Is that what I'm looking at?
We can take a peek at that real quick. So there that one is. Alexander Barkov gets signed by the Wingdings. This does a lot of good for us. This makes lineups way easier to fill out as we move forward. So this is how this one's built out. But I did want to go over an end of the season roster, which is very similar to this if you guys are watching on YouTube, just without a Barkov mixed in there. And Lucas Raymond was sniffing a spot, and Jonathan Berggren was sniffing a spot, and who else did I have mixed in there? Albert Johansson.
Ekholm?
No, So for the 2022 roster, I am putting in. I'm picking up Matthias Ekholm and Alexander Barkov. Our entire left side defense is going to be gone next season. So I did bring back Danny DeKeyser, and despite Simon Edmondson getting drilled into the boards today, I was kind of hoping that he'd get a shot early next year. I'm thinking that is not a big shot, but here we are. We're talking. Let's have fun. So that first line in 2022, like my hopeful Verana Barkov and Lucas Raymond. Second line, Zadina, Larkin, and Bertuzzi. Third line, we've got Fabry, Puce, and Jonathan Berggren. And then our fourth line is Ernie, Veleno, and Mitchell Stevens sticks around. And Veleno takes that center spot that Tristan was trying to get in there.
Did we trade Elias Pettersson? We traded for the rights to Barkov and then signed him?
Right. Yeah, we traded away Pettersson. No.
So we won the 2021 Cup with Pettersson. So this is too much success. Let's try this. Run it back with Barkov. Gotcha.
I do have another version of these with Pettersson mixed in there, Casey Cizikas, and Kyle Palmieri for this season's roster. But that was for funsies. That's my let's fucking go roster. But this is just your standard 2022. I'm signing 2 free agents, and look at all these young kids. We're gonna be fucking amazing. Clearly, no war score, no points could be predicted with the likes of Lucas Raymond, and of course Simon Edvinsson doesn't even have a Red Wing logo next to him on the. If you guys are watching on YouTube, because technically to Jay Fresh he doesn't even exist yet.
You got to earn it, like those. What is it? The Buckeyes who put those little nuts on their helmets. So you got to earn the winged wheel. All right, you just go out there in a red jersey. Good luck.
And like I said too, with Edvinsson making it on here with the bottom pairing. I did actually just completely miss that I had Albert Johansson at my end of season, at least the tryout of this current season is like my fingers crossed hopeful. So I don't know how he got my tryout, and then he got cut for 2022. So he apparently didn't go well, went really bad. But that's another option, I think, in that bottom pairing. I think everybody here, we have Johnny Williams. Let me pick him out. Who else? There we go. Eric. They're pointing out we're a few years down the road from seeing Edvinsson. So even at that point where we're looking at his second year, they're still at one more year before he's ready to go. For me at this point, I'm not going to put my finger on anything. I'd like to think that we're giving some. He's gonna at least be here in Michigan at the start of next season to get some look. But again, pie in the sky. This is how I want it to look. Mike, any final thoughts before we wrap up?
I'm really excited to see what kind of draft capital we got in that Pettersson for rights to Barkov deal. Hopefully, 8 to 9 first-round picks for arguably the best center in the National Hockey League. So I'm really excited to see how that trade pans out, Matt.
I will say I did have to go like a few million over the cap to get us into like a playoff position after I brought over Pettersson. Did you doing
have
the math.
Somebody warm the bench for the regular season and come back in the playoffs so it wouldn't hurt us?
Like those are the problems I can't wait to have. But
those are Tampa Bay Lightning problems. Those aren't Red Wing problems.
Oh, here we go. Tristan's got some more options too for our third line. Emil Vero, William Wallander.
Wallander. Now you're speaking my language, Tristan. That's my boy.
6'6" Wallander or 6'5" Wallander. Either way,
in wrestling, he's 7 foot, man. 7 foot. 300 pounds, Wallander coming out. Can't wait.
And Eric's got McIsaac in there. I would love to see him get a shot. I just feel like every year there's something that just, another injury to McIsaac or something that'll set him back. I looked at this and just thought or at least for McIsaac's sake, I was like, man, that would be wonderful to see him get a shot. But I just don't feel it anymore. But would be great. Wallander, my hiccup there was that I'm pretty sure he doesn't even have his ELC yet. But Vero signed his a few months ago, so he'd be ready to go. He'd be good to go. We've also got maybe Donnie Sabrango really surprises everybody, who got that early contract with Grand Rapids last year. That's another good shot. But for all we know too, there's some trades, there's some free agents that could fill in here. So pie in the sky. I think Matthias Ekholm was not reaching too far, but still landing in a pretty good defenseman. And Barkov would be the one where we just shell out. That's where we're ready to roll. All right.
Before we go, if we really make that Palmieri move, Matt, does that mean that we're saying goodbye to a lottery pick? Do you think that he would make that much of a difference this year?
No, I would still come back to the fact that I look at him as a power play specialist, and if we're trying to teach, these youngsters how to get something going, and eventually we're going to see the likes of Lucas Raymond on this team. I'd like him to get in on a power play unit that wasn't as embarrassing as our power play unit was last year. So I just want to see something where there's, like coaching is a huge aspect, I guess, of these power plays. Bilesma goes and Tunge's going to step in. But, I mean, to me, number one priority is personnel around you. So if we're struggling to put together a second power play unit because it's just hard to go up and down this roster and pick 10 guys, we can get 5. 10 is rough. So that's the long and short of that one.
Tange could look really good. Like you just said with personnel. Like now you got Letty, you're going to have healthy Bertuzzi. And then potentially Palmieri. I mean, he's going to look better, right? Just with a couple healthy pieces, and maybe 2 shiny new guys. So we'll see.
All right, everybody, thanks for tuning in. I thought this was fun. I feel like maybe I'm only going to get like 2 or 3 episodes out of this. I was really hoping 5. I wanted to go about 5 hours on this, but. Maybe 2 or 3. So
I can't wait for that emergency pod when we sign Elias.
Everybody watching now, you'll see it pop up, new episodes over the next week or so. But it's just going to be a retread of this stuff. I really appreciate all the likes. I love the conversation you guys are having. I love turning everything that goes on in the comments into some new experiments on the War roster builder. So yeah, thanks for tuning in, Mike. Let's sail off.
Let's do it.